All right, so let's talk about some brushes. Brushes are probably the most important tool of the watercolor artist. So the brushes are specifically, they're not made specifically for just watercolor. You can use them for any water-based paint. You can actually even use them for some diluted acrylics if you want to. But if you have oil paint brushes, you cannot use oil paint brushes for your water-based paint. You can't use them interchangeably because inevitably with your oil paint brushes, there will still be some residue in the bristles, even though you clean them very, very well. It is very difficult to get out all of the linseed oil and the mineral spirits and everything that you use out of there. So when you're trying to paint with watercolor or any other water-based paint like gouache or something like that, you'll find that it'll leave like this oily residue. And you may not be able to achieve that nice gradient in your washes. It may speckle on you. So to avoid that, you should have a set that is just dedicated to any water-based paint that you're using, okay? Now, I did mention in my class syllabus a few of the brushes that you would need. So just all around brushes that I would like you to have is a set of nice round brushes. So these are my round brushes, and they're called round brushes because, as you can see, the metal part here has the bristles arranged in a circle. Okay, so this is a round brush. Now, they have a different gauge on them, so to speak. So this is a 10 or 10 millimeters, so it's going to be obviously bigger than the 6 and bigger than the 4. Okay, but these are really, really nice because they're kind of my workhorse. They're great for just getting watercolor onto your paper. They're great for just moving the watercolor around. These are the number one brush shapes that I use. These are my go-to. So you're going to need a set, have at least 2 sizes. I prefer to paint with 3 sizes. Like I said, I have the 10, the 4, and the 6, but whatever you can find and whatever brand you choose, just have at least 2. You want to have like a smaller one, and then you want to have like a bigger one. Okay. You also will need to have some flats. Okay, so a flat is a brush that the metal part has been flattened. Okay, so the bristles are kind of in like a rectangular shape, and they're cut at a flat. Okay, so I have a larger one here, and then I have this smaller one here. And I should note that these are all synthetic. I try not to buy squirrel hair or any of that, like the real sables, just because there's synthetic available and they are wonderful. They hold up a little bit better over time. So I just like the synthetic. But again, you'll need a couple sizes of your flats. These are great for when you're trying to do washes. You're going to need 2 sizes. So this one's, depending on the brand, they'll either go by inches or they'll go by millimeters. It's just metric versus the English system. And this one happens to go by 1/4 inch. Okay, so this is obviously going to be smaller. This one's an inch. So it's going to be a lot bigger than the 1/4 inch, okay? Now, there are a lot of specialty brushes. This is called a filbert. So it's a flat, but the bristles have been given a haircut, so to speak, and they are rounded at the ends, which is nice if you want kind of a nice wide stroke, but you want to control You want to taper at the ends. This is great for that kind of a brush stroke. So good for florals, that kind of thing. And also I should note that you can see that these bristles, this is made for a light bodied paint. So these bristles are nice and flexible. They're very, very soft to the touch. If you should have a brush that is like this, for example, this one is very stiff and it's still springy, but it's very, very stiff and the bristles are rather coarse. It feels rather coarse, almost prickly on the end. So this is made for a heavy bodied paint, okay, like oils or acrylics. Okay, this is not made for watercolor paint. What will happen is if you try to put too harsh of a brush on your watercolor paper, due to the high cotton content in your paper, you'll actually cause pilling, just like on a sweater. You'll actually rip up those little cotton fibers on the surface of the paper, and it will cause them to ball up onto your surface, which can cause a lot of unsightly things to happen, especially if you want a nice wash or gradient. It will interrupt that. So you want to make sure that you're selecting brushes that are made for watercolor or light bodied paint and not heavy bodied paint. Now, two specialty brushes that I need you to mention are the rigger and the mop. So let's start with the mop. The mop is, it doesn't really have a shape. It's kind of a hybrid between like a filbert and a round. So it's not completely squashed flat here on the metal part. It's a little bit round, but its purpose is to hold a lot of water. So you would dip this into your water and then you would wash some clean water over your paper to get it prepared for when you're painting. So this is just a vehicle to get a lot of water in a very short amount of time onto your paper. Okay, so this is called a mop. And the other one that I want to mention is the rigger. Okay, so it will actually say on there, it'll actually say rigger. Okay, and this is a specialty brush. It is a round brush in shape, but it has a very long bristle to it. You can see how long it is. It's very, very flexible, and it doesn't have a lot of bristles, so it's rather thin. But the point of the rigger is you can use this for a variety of things. It's a great liner. So when you need to do some fine detail or you want to do like some cross hatching, this is the go-to tool for that. You can also do a lot of detail like stippling if you want to add some stippling. Sometimes I do that into my florals. This is your fine detail tool for a watercolor artist. Okay, so this is a specialty brush. You're not going to find this or the mop in any of the brush sets that come in like a pack. You aren't going to find that. You're going to have to buy these probably separately. Okay, and of course there's a bunch of different kinds. I don't teach the use of the fan brush. So if yours comes with a fan brush, you're not going to worry about it for a beginner. We don't really use the fan brush until probably intermediate level, so you don't really have to worry about it. There's also a variety of detail brushes. If you really like hyperrealism and you want a very fine detail brush, feel free to buy one. We don't really do a whole lot of hyperrealism, just because that's not the way I paint. So, you would kind of be experimenting on your own with that. Okay.